Saint Anthony of Padua is one of the Catholic Church's most popular saints. He is the patron saint of lost and stolen articles. He is usually depicted holding the child Jesus, or a lily, or a book, or all three in his arms. The gifts people give in thanksgiving to God for blessings received through Saint Anthony are popularly called Saint Anthony's bread. Saint Anthony was a powerful Franciscan teacher and preacher. He was born in 1195 in Lisbon, Portugal, and given the name of Fernando. His parents are supposed to have belonged to one of the prominent families of the city. At the age of 15, he entered the religious order of Saint Augustine. His life's direction changed when the bodies of the first 5 Franciscan martyrs were returned from Morocco. He was extremely impressed and was inspired to a momentous decision. He went to a little friary in Coimbra and begged to be allowed to join the Franciscan order and be sent to preach in other lands. After some challenges from his prior, he was an Augustinian, remember, he was allowed to leave and become a Franciscan. This is when he took the name Anthony. The Franciscans were happy to allow Anthony to go to Morocco to be a witness for Christ. But unfortunately, Morocco did not agree with him, and he became seriously ill. After several months with no recovery, he realized he had to go home. He never arrived. His ship ran into storms and high winds and was blown east across the Mediterranean. He eventually arrived on the east coast of Sicily. There were friars at nearby Messina who welcomed the stranger and began nursing him back to health. Perhaps we would never have heard of Anthony if he hadn't gone to an ordination of Dominicans and Franciscans in 1222. As they gathered for a meal afterward, it turned out that nobody had prepared a sermon. Anthony was therefore asked to speak. He demurred, but finally began to speak in a simple way that was easy for all to understand. It was obvious that he was very knowledgeable, but his holiness was what really impressed everyone. So Anthony was then assigned to preach in northern Italy. Despite his eloquence and the simplicity of his sermons, not everyone listened. Legend has it that one day Anthony went to Rimini. He started to preach, but the people did not want to listen to him, and they even mocked him. In a dramatic gesture, Anthony went to the seashore and began to speak of God's care for those creatures that live in the waters. A shoal of fish swam near the bank, partially thrusting themselves out of the water and appearing to listen carefully. At the end of his sermon, the saint blessed them and they swam away. This made a deep impression upon the onlookers. Soon after, a great crowd gathered around the saint, ready to listen to his words. Anthony traveled tirelessly, perhaps 400 trips in total, before he began to teach in the friaries. He began in a friary in Bologna, which later became a famous school. Anthony continued to preach as he taught the friars and assumed more responsibility within the order. At Easter in 1228, while in Rome, he met Pope Gregory IX. In 1231, ill health made him realize that death was close. He was at Arcella when he received the last sacraments and died in peace. He was only 36 years old and had been a Franciscan for the last 10 years. The following year, Pope Gregory IX, moved by the many miracles that occurred at Anthony's tomb, declared him a saint. The reason Saint Anthony is considered the patron saint of lost or stolen things is traced back to an incident in his own life. Anthony is supposed to have possessed a book of Psalms that was very important to him. A novice who had tired of living the religious life decided to depart the community. However, he stole Anthony's psalter when he left. When he realized his psalter was missing, Anthony prayed it would be found or returned to him. After his prayer, the thieving novice returned to the order and returned the psalter to Anthony. The stolen book is said to be preserved in a Franciscan friary in Bologna. The reason why St. Anthony is portrayed with the child Jesus dates back to a story told about him in the complete edition of Butler's Lives of the Saints. It talks about a visit Anthony paid to the Lord of Châteauneuf. Anthony was praying late in the night when suddenly the room was filled with a light that was brighter than the sun. Jesus then appeared to St. Anthony in the form of a little child. Châteauneuf, attracted by the brilliant light that filled his house, witnessed the vision but promised to tell no one of it until after St. Anthony's death. St. Anthony's feast day is the 13th of June, and besides being the one to pray to when you have lost something, he is also revered in Portugal, France, Spain and Italy as the patron saint of sailors and fishermen. O holy St. Anthony, the gentlest and kindest of saints, your burning love of God, your exalted virtue, and your great charity towards your fellow creatures made you worthy, when on earth, to possess miraculous powers such as were given to no other saint. Miracles waited on your word, and that word you were ever ready to speak at the request of those in trouble. The anxious prayer of bitter trial was never addressed to you in vain. To the sick you gave back health, you restored what was lost. The sorrow-stricken were objects of your tender compassion. Even the dead you raised to life when the wounded heart cried out to you from the depths of his bitter anguish. When nothing on earth was impossible to you, except not to have compassion on those in distress and sorrow. Encouraged by this thought and convinced of the efficacy of your holy intercession, we kneel before your holy image, and full of confidence, we implore you to obtain for us the answer to this our prayer may require a miracle. Even so, are you not the saint of miracles, who, when on earth, had but to speak, and the mightiest wonders were wrought? O gentle and loving St. Anthony, whose heart was ever full of human sympathy, whisper our prayers into the ears of the infant Jesus, who loved to linger in your arms. One word from you, and our prayer will be granted. O speak that word, and the gratitude of our heart will ever be yours. Amen.